night. Sweet baby, baby, my amphetamine delight. Ooh, 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 my amphetamine delight. We are fighting a war. We come now living in new ways. When the rules are set, we tear us apart. We come now fight for living ways. Please to the politicians and the poor do nothing but distort the truth and tire. The system is built to keep us to ourselves. You ask what I can give. I've got nothing for you, but everything for a better way. So you demand that we live under your laws, hiding from the fact we are at war. At war. We are at war. At war. At war. We'll settle for the system. At war. To fight for our own voice. At war. Will I force them all to listen? Is it all coming down? What's lost? Do we settle for the system? Do we fight for our own voice? Will I force them all to listen? Is this all coming down to one choice? So I wait for change to come, and I ask myself, why does every day the sky remain over our heads, over our heads? So would it be impossible to tear it down, to tear it down? Now would it be impossible to tear it down, to tear it down, down? I've got nothing for you. So you ask what I can give. I've got nothing for you, but everything for a better way. So you demand that I live under your laws, still blinded from the fact we are at war. At war. At war. At war. So here we go now, living in a new age, where the roads are set, the tear us apart. Come now, fight for a living wage. Everybody to the politicians and the board do nothing but distort the entire truth. System is built on you. How long must we wait?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Goatcast, the Goat Cave podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Travis Stone. He's one of my best friends for years. I've known him for super long time. He's been in both of my videos that I've made, and he's always done a great job at riding, and he fucking kills it. How's it going, Travis?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Awesome to have you, man. Fucking thank you for coming over.
Thanks for having me.
So today we'll start off just by talking about a little bit of BMX news that's going on. So most recently we have a bunch of Swamp Fest coverage, which that jam looked fucking incredible. Like half the shit that was going on was ridiculous.
I loved that rail.
That rail
big
was
rail over the
ridiculous,
swamp.
man.
That was so cool.
I could totally see you fucking trying that thing. You could probably do it too. It's so fucking long.
Yeah.
Like holy
all about
shit.
That rail life.
People got like fucked on that rail though. A dude broke his collarbone, I'm pretty sure. Like he just ate it though. He like did not even get onto the rail the right way. He like literally hopped on and then went over and hit a tire, and like just because of the way that it's built, it's so fucked, right?
Oh, that's sketchy.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. But that open loop was ridiculous with the loop before it that was made out of the skids. Holy shit, dude. There's always like thousands of people that show up for that too, which is insane.
Well, if I lived in that country, I might have showed up for it too.
Exactly. It's there's a couple of people from like Dundas area. I know Jeff, like Super Happy Funland, if you know him, big beard, bald guy. He fucking kills it. He went there and he did a really cool downside hand plant on the like Jesco wall that they had there.
Yeah.
That was super cool. But yeah, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't checked out any of the Swamp Fest coverage, definitely do that.
Check it out.
Yeah, man. There's a clip of Corey Nastasio doing a backflip over this like 30-foot double, and a dude right behind him, literally like 10 feet behind him, fucking front flip no-handered it. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's so gnarly, man. I don't even understand like what makes you want to backflip a fucking 30-foot double, or what makes you want to front flip it, let alone front flip no-hander. Like, that's ridiculous. Also, we got Vans Pro Cup. It's actually one of our local guys. Corey Walsh is over there right now. Corey actually grew up kind of around Cambridge / he did live in BC for a little while as
Grew
well.
up in Ayr, Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15 minutes outside of Kitchener.
Yeah. Fucking awesome dude. Super humble. So I hope that's going well for him. I've seen some of his runs and it's crazy, man. Like, he's on fire this year. I think that he's going to definitely be kind of a more known rider in the next couple years.
He's awesome. I felt bad the first couple times he came up to me. He knew exactly who I was, and I didn't know who he was. And he's like, "Hey, Travis." I'm like, "Hey, man. So what's your name again?" "It's Corey." I'm like, "Corey. Corey who?" "Corey Walsh." "Oh, Corey Walsh. Oh, yeah, I know you."
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. No, he's dope. His sister's actually a BMX racer, I believe, too.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
Well, that's what he grew up in.
Yeah,
he started
exactly.
in BMX racing, and then he evolved to freestyle.
It's always super cool whenever you see dudes that ride BMX racing come into, like, street or even park riding, just because of how fucking fast they go and, like, some of the transfers that they do, too, right? Like,
it's all about that pump, though.
Yeah, exactly. They figured it out. So it's really cool whenever you see like racers join the freestyle gang.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty, then we got you can rent the Jimmy Levan story made by Props. So for anybody that doesn't know who Jimmy Levan is, he was a amazing rider, still is. He's kind of like the original Sean Burns. That's the best way to compare him, I think. Absolutely unreal on a bike. He's done some of the biggest gaps and some of the biggest tricks on a bike. For street riding, he's definitely
an animal.
Yeah, he shaped a lot of the like way that the Bone Death guys ride, which is super, super cool. Then we got there's a dude named, like, his channel is called Weird and Revered. He actually had a clip in my first video, Fuckasses, but he just released a new video too, which he's super cool, so check that out. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about music for a second, and then after that I'll play a song, and Travis and I will start talking about some pretty cool shit. So
it'll be lit, fam.
It'll be super lit. Yeah, so in music news, we got album of the week is Catbite's debut album. That was the first song that I played today, was Catbite's Amphetamine Delight. And then after that was Notes on Pulling the Sky Down by Strikes Anywhere. I saw that band when I was like 15, and I was taller than the vocalist, and this fucking dude has like dreads all the way down to his ass, but he is like the coolest fucking dude Those guys are like a political punk rock band. They've been around for a super long time.
Did they write down the notes on how to bring the sky down?
They did, I believe. You should definitely check it out if you haven't. Yeah, so you can pre-order the Catbite debut album from Bad Time Records. Those guys are super cool. I was talking to the owner today. And then Pooza Fest. The time slots are out now, so I figured out what shows I'm going to go to. If you guys are going to Pooza Fest in Montreal, definitely hit me up, and I'd love to hang out with you guys. All right, and so we're going to do a brand new song that just came out by the Planet Smashers, and this song is called Can't Stop, and it's from their new album, Too Much Information, that'll be coming out next month.
Can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop, won't drop all those things that you do. I can't stop thinking about you. My mind's dumb, I'm numb, there's only one thing and that's you. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. I try to stop, but I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. I really can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about you. There's no compromise. I can't do otherwise. No compromise. No compromise. There's no reason. My mind's playing treason. No reason for treason. No reason for treason. There's no compromise. I can't do otherwise. No compromise. No compromise. There's no reason. My mind's playing treason. No reason for treason. No reason for treason. No compromise. No compromise. I can't stop thinking about you. 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 I can't stop thinking about you.
All right, and we're back. That was the Planet Smashers' new song, Can't Stop. Those guys are awesome. I've seen them a couple times. They're going to be at Pooza Fest as well, so check them out. And Travis, let's get down to business. Let's talk about some BMX shit. So
Let's do it.
let's start off by saying, like, how long you've been riding for, do you think?
I'd say just about half my life. Like I've liked biking, but when I kind of took my focus more towards BMX, I think I was about 12 to 13 years old. So I've been riding for about 13, 14 years in BMX specifically.
That's awesome, man. Can you remember what the first BMX bike you had was?
I'd say my first legitimate one, I remember I had a cheap Zellers one before. I can't even remember what it was, but my first real BMX bike that I was really proud was my 2003 Mongoose Pro Team Series.
That's awesome. That's I always, like, when I first started, I started with like a really crappy Diamondback that I bought off somebody, and then I slowly got like better and better bikes, and then my first like real bike that I was like really proud of was a Miraco Black Pearl, which was like, it was just a complete bike, but I slowly got parts for it, and that was the only frame that I had never cracked. I sold that frame to a local dude who's no longer really living around here. You would know him, Flav.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I remember
so,
Flav back, and he's in London now.
Yeah, he's a really cool fucking dude, man. I hope he's doing well. I haven't heard from him in a very long time.
Yeah, he's not riding BMX anymore.
Yeah, I
he
didn't
hurt
think
his
so.
he hurt his shoulder, his back too much to continue.
Yeah, that makes
But man,
sense.
I had to deliver a lot of penny savers to buy that bike. I
Yeah.
bought it from Zellers.
That's crazy. Yeah, man. When I first got my first bike, I was delivering newspapers, so like I totally was doing that to try and buy that one, which was nice.
You got to pay to play.
Exactly, that's for sure. So what we're really here to talk about today is helmet safety and kind of like some of the stuff that you've personally went through, and I've went through some of it, not even close to the level that you have, but I kind of want to start off by asking, when you first started, did you ever wear a helmet or not really?
Yeah, I guess when I was a lot younger, my parents would always make me wear a helmet, and I just I grew out of it. I was kind of irresponsible. I rode with a lot of guys who didn't really wear helmets, and they kind of chirp people with helmets, but not really in the way like calling them a pussy, but you just look at someone doing like a big handrail with a helmet on, and then you see someone doing it without a helmet on, and it's just like you automatically right there think, well, the guy who did it without a helmet's way more hardcore than the guy who did it with a helmet. But that was, that's what I was brought into it as. I don't really have the same opinions nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely can agree with that. Like, if you look at BMX, or even like the better way to look at it is through skateboarding. And I know that you follow skateboarding really like a lot, is same as me. But you never see street skaters with a helmet ever.
No,
like, it just doesn't
never.
happen. It's not even a thing, right? And unfortunately, it does lead some of them down the wrong path, and a lot of them do get really fucking hurt. But again, like you were saying, pay to play, right? But
Yeah.
with BMX, I definitely think that there's a different kind of stigma around it. And I think because there's been so many people that have been really hurt from not wearing a helmet, things are really changing. Like, I'm seeing a lot of street riders wearing them now, and it's definitely, like, it's a lot better, right? Like, I'm really bad for not wearing one either. Like, my whole video part for my last video, I only wore my helmet like 4 or 5 times, I think. So, I don't know, like, and for your video parts, like the 2 video parts that we filmed, I don't think there's a single clip of you wearing a helmet.
No, I never wore a helmet.
For a lot of the crew, there really isn't, right? Like,
Unless
if you
I was
look
at a skate park.
Yeah, exactly.
Indoor.
Yeah.
Where you're forced to.
Exactly. If you look at, like, a lot of the footage that we've collected over the years, like, there's probably not even 5% of it where we're wearing helmets, and that's, like, super dangerous, right? It's, like, sucks that you got to learn the hard way, but I definitely think that the crew has been, like, impacted in a better way because of it, and I think, like, it sucks that you had to take such a hard slam so many times, but I definitely think a lot of the crew has really started to double, like, check and think, like, maybe I should be wearing one, right? Even if it's on something that you don't really, like, have problems doing, right? That's when it happens the most. Well, let's talk about the first time you hit your head. So I don't really know too much about this time, but I know that you've hit your head around 3 or 4 times, correct?
Yeah, 3 really good ones.
Okay, so let's start with the first really, really good one.
So the first really good one was back at Riverside Park, probably going back 6 or 7 years ago or so. I can't quite remember, but yeah, I was just cruising around through the bowl doing this weird gap from one area into this small spine, and I would shoot out at the end, and there was a bunch of pine needles in the corner of where I would shoot out. It was like the bowl corner, and I'd been doing it like 20, 30, 40 times that day, and I was just trying to go higher and higher on this gap, and every time you'd shoot out, you'd just be going so fast. And finally, one time, my front tire caught those pine needles, and I went face first right into the bowl. And some people said I was knocked out for a couple seconds. I don't really remember it. I just remember peeling my face off the ground and going like, whoa, what just happened? And that split my upper left lip, and I still have a permanent scar. It doesn't look huge, but you can definitely tell that my lip isn't perfect on that side anymore. Yeah, my teeth went right through.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that happening. And a lot of the times, when you're looping out or you're slipping out right as you're going up a quarter, that is the worst possible fucking time for it.
And there was so much momentum when I went up.
And you have no time to actually, like, process it, right? Like, I found, at least for myself, like, anytime that I've really gotten fucking hurt or where I've hit my face, there's no time to process it. It's the last thing that you're even thinking of. Like, the last time that I did it, I was able to kind of figure it out before I even fell, but most of the time, if you're falling, you don't have enough time. So yeah, so that definitely, like, as you were saying, it left some permanent damage. What did you do after that? Were you able to drive home, or were you driving at this point? Did you get a ride from somebody?
I think I was driving. I honestly can't remember all the details. I just remember I had to go to the hospital, and I was with Kevin MacArthur actually, and he called an ambulance.
Yeah, that's
And I was
definitely
pissed because I had to pay for the ambulance after.
it's definitely like it can get expensive for an ambulance, but sometimes it's probably the better option, right? Like I know myself, years ago, you'd probably remember him, but Dominic, the big black guy who used to ride the odd all the time and
Oh yeah, yeah.
unbelievable style. This guy was so good, and he had like these transfers over these little like camel hump things so perfectly. And like if you haven't been to the odd, you're just gonna think like, oh, these little tiny camel hump things are
No, they're
fucking
really
nothing.
awkwardly shaped,
They
and
are.
it's very difficult to actually make the gap nicely and
It's
go back into the transition.
It's very hard to ride these things, and they will kick you.
They're
at
like
the
mini
worst
concrete
times.
spines that should have been about 6 feet high, and instead they're about 1.5 feet.
Yeah, and they are unbelievably fucking deadly if you hit them wrong. Anyways, Dominic, this probably happened 6 years ago. He went to hit the spine, or like I guess the spine, but the humps. He went to hit this transfer that he does all the time. He literally had done it like 300 times that day, and just all it took was really just to get that wrong kick, and his front wheel hit the other side of it, and he went face first right into the pavement. He was knocked out, snoring. When he woke up, I was the one that was right there beside him. I kind of checked him out, and when he lifted his face up, I knew immediately that there was a lot more damage than you would really think. He ended up losing the front 4 teeth on the top. We called an ambulance for him when he was out, and he ended up going in the ambulance, and I took his bike back to my house with me. And then a couple weeks went by, and he came and picked up his bike, and he definitely he's got some fake teeth now, but I feel like if you ride BMX, there's a good chance you're going to lose some teeth at some point if you're at least that kind of rider, right? And
Mouth guards are also very ideal.
yeah, they definitely are. But yeah, with him, like he really only rode for about another year, and ever since then, like I haven't really seen him. I'm not sure if he was in college at that time and maybe just moved away, or if he just kind of quit riding altogether. I know he wasn't wearing a helmet at the time. He has like permanent scars on his face, and with his black skin, the scars look really like you can see them a lot more, which is really rough. Like that's gotta really suck, right? Especially on your face. Like luckily for me, any of the scars that I have are kind of underneath my beard, and they're really not that bad. Yeah, with yourself, Travis, have you had like do you have scars on your face that you're not really happy with, or have they kind of gone away? Because I remember when you hit your head for the second time or landed on your face, there was one that was very prominent, but I can't even see it now. So I don't know.
Yeah, that was the one on the right side of my mouth, and I bit through, and it probably went down like not quite an inch past my mouth on the right side, and I was just not too happy. The doctors did a great job. I just remember when they sewed it up, I felt like they sewed it up too tight. So when I smile, like you can just kind of see one side doesn't quite stick out as far as the other side, and it's kind of hard to notice unless I'm really pointing it out. But it definitely sucked, and a lot of scar tissue, and it took a while to kind of soften up. So you really can't notice it as much. But before, it was definitely like my smile was really big on one side and kind of not quite as big on the other side.
Yeah, that's I could definitely like see that, but it's kind of rough, especially on the face, right? Like it's really hard to hide them, but like for that one, I can't even notice it anymore, which is nice. But that was like 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
Almost
right
3
around
years
there.
ago. Yeah. So
Just over 3 years ago.
yeah. So let's actually talk about that crash. So this was back when we were filming for Fuckasses, which was the first video that I made. This was actually right around the time that I was finishing the video. I was currently living at All In Skate Park, working there, and Braden kind of took over on filming for a little while for me then.
It was in the middle of December.
Yeah, it
We
was
were having a crazy hot streak.
Yeah.
Hadn't had any snow.
It was super warm, and I just remember getting a message from you, like asking if I was in town, and I just was like, no, sorry, man, I'm not really around. And then, but 2 days later, I get a photo, and it's you in the hospital, and I was like super concerned, but at that point, I figured out that you were okay, and Let's actually talk about that night. So after you texted me asking if I was around, what did you end up doing?
Well, I'd asked a few people to come out. You were one of the people that I asked to come out because I just wanted someone to come film me. I was in a real handrail time. I don't know. I was doing a bunch of handrails. I was really confident with them. I just wanted to do more and more, and I'd just be picking out handrails all around town and just planning, okay, I'm going to try this on that one. I'm going to try Peg's Ice on this one. And this was it was a short, steep, kinked handrail, but I thought the background of the school it was at was a pretty cool setting. And so I tried texting you to see if you were around. You weren't around, and I tried 2 other people, and everyone was busy or not around. So I was just kind of like, well, fuck it. I'm going to go just get this done. I had my own little camera, and it was starting to get dark out, so I brought some lights with me. And when I got there, it started to rain a bit. It wasn't like full on pouring, but it was drizzling. It was enough drizzling that everything was wet. But the thing that made me still want to do it was the school had a covering over their front entrance where the rail was, and so it was all dry right up until the rail. So I set up all my lights, and I set up my camera, and I tried it 3 times. And the first time I went right over the bars and fell pretty hard, but I didn't hit my face or anything. It was still a fairly hard fall. And then the second time over the bars again, didn't fall quite as hard. I was able to kind of roll out of it. And originally I wanted to try just a pegs to ice on it, but the middle section was not quite long enough for the full bike for both pegs to be on that middle section at the same time. So I just decided, okay, I'm just going to try to double peg it. And the third time I went right over the bars, but instead of getting my hands out, I guess I just couldn't get them out in time, but I just went right to my face and knocked me out cold. And I had the whole thing on camera, and I was knocked out for about 4.5 minutes. And then some guy was just walking past, and it was nighttime, and it's raining, and he just sees this guy, me, sleeping on the concrete and my bike there, and just thinking like, what the fuck? So he came up, and yeah, I never got his name or anything, but I owe a lot to that guy because he called an ambulance for me, and he made sure I was okay. And yeah, it was pretty interesting time.
That dude definitely, he definitely, like, in some way kind of saved your life, you know what I mean? Like, had you been there asleep for much longer, like, you don't really know, right? Like, you would have woken up and maybe you kind of would have been a little delusional and just thought, okay, well, I just need to leave right now, and maybe you would have tried to drive, right? And that definitely would have been a good idea. At that point, you were taken to the hospital, but I think the thing that was, like, not to put it this way, but the thing that was really funny was, like, when he called the ambulance, the police show up, the fire department shows up, and the ambulance shows up. But the fire department is, like, trying so hard to get you just to kind of stay there, and you're picking up your bike, and you're just trying to walk away and get away. And I remember, like, editing the footage, I could just hear you telling the firefighters, like, fuck off, leave me alone, fuck off.
No, that was the guy originally.
Sorry. Yeah.
So when I woke up, I don't remember anything. What I start remembering in that situation when I got into the ambulance is when I first start remembering stuff again. I remember trying the rail a couple times, and then I just remember being in the ambulance. And so I guess when I woke up, as soon as I woke up, I started telling the guy, fuck off right away. I kept saying fuck off, and he's asking if I'm okay, and I just kept responding with fuck off. Like I couldn't speak any other words other than fuck off. And it's kind of humorous in a way, but you know, when you get into that kind of state of mind, you're a bit delusional, and you really become somebody you're not. And then I guess when the fire department showed up, like I vaguely might remember a flashback from it. Watching the video kind of helps remind me, but I know in the video when the firefighters start walking up to me, as soon as they start walking up, like something in my mind was just like, oh no, like I'm in trouble or something. And I pick up my bike and I walk right past the firefighter, my mouth just hanging open, all bloody, my whole face full of blood. Like, I'm not involved here. And they're like, excuse me, like you need medical attention. No, I'm okay. And Yeah, so apparently they told me at the hospital, security came into my room and they told me, yeah, we've got your bike and it looks like a really nice bike. So we've got it right here in the security office. So you don't have to worry. I'm like, oh, well, that's really nice. And then they told me, they're like, yeah, you would not leave the scene without your bike. So they brought my bike right inside of the ambulance with me because I absolutely refused to leave.
That's awesome. It's definitely like you wouldn't want to lose your bike in that situation, right? Like that would be just a giant kick in the balls to fucking land on your face and then go to the hospital and you kind of start to remember stuff and all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, my bike. And at that point, like Kitchener's not that great of a city and your bike would be fucking gone. So it's really good that they took it with you, and I really hope that they do that. Like I feel like sometimes they wouldn't, right? Like with Dominic, they wouldn't take his bike. I had to take it with me.
Yeah.
And like it's definitely a rough situation in that case, right? Like you got to find somebody, and in your case, you didn't have anybody there with you, so there really isn't anything you could do. But
I think they were able to contact my parents. I don't know how they got into contact with them. I was still living at home at the time, but I just remember being in the hospital and seeing my parents come in. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh my God, like, is my car still there? Like, is it still open? Where's the camera? And I guess the police had got a hold of my parents. They brought them my camera and everything. So it was kind of cool in the sense that they handed me my camera before I was even like given any stitches or anything. So that's how I got that clip in Fuckasses where I got the, as soon as they handed me the camera, I just pressed record. I filmed a little bit of the hospital room and turned the camera over to my face right in front of my parents. And like, this sucks dick. My parents kind of giggled a bit and like,
yeah, it's definitely like one of my favorite clips that I've ever had the opportunity to acquire, just because of like how crazy it actually is. The clip of
how real it is.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no acting there.
Exactly. The clip is like 20 minutes long of you landing and then the police showing up and the police officer, like they go and they put crime scene tape down.
Well, that was the first cop. He was an idiot. So he's looking around at the scene thinking that I got robbed or something because he was told that I was found unconscious, right? Doesn't notice that I have two lights standing on the ground lighting up the railing, and he's just thinking that somebody robbed me or something. So he's taping it off like a crime scene. And then right near the end of the 20 minutes is when the second cop gets there. He looks around. He looks at the two lights I had set up. He slowly walks up, and then he sees the camera that I had set up still recording on the railing, because there's 3 railings in the front. And the one was on the right side, and it goes right to the entrance door. So I put the camera back on that railing to record the railing I was trying to grind. And it's kind of cool. You can see his badge and his gun in the holster and everything. He just comes up and grabs the camera, sees it's still recording, shuts it off, and that's how that clip ended.
It was definitely it's one of my favorite clips just because of how like ridiculous it is, right? Like nothing there makes any sense on how it all went down, but it worked so perfectly. So
yeah, crime over. They just probably watched the video and went, "Oh, that's exactly what happened. No crime to report here."
Yeah, exactly.
He just fucked himself up.
Yeah, but yeah, moving on from then, like your parents came to the hospital and the police officer kind of told them what had happened. That time, how long were you out of work, and did you lose your license at all?
No, I still had my license, and I think I was out of work for about 3.5 weeks. And it was funny. It was literally that happened 2 days before I started a new job, and my mouth was so fucked up I could barely talk. 'Cause I had all those stitches, and it was so sore. I had to get 2 rounds of stitches for that one. The first was, I think, around 15 stitches, maybe 20. And then after that, a week or 2 after, then they had to put a fine set of stitches in, and that was closer to 40 stitches. And yeah, that second stitching, when that freezing wore off, that was some of the most pain I've ever had in my face. That was really painful, just for about a day. You know, it subsided, but the initial, when it happened, when I got the second set of stitches, that was really painful. And I was off work for about 3 weeks, and my mom had to call my new boss to tell her that I couldn't make it in because I fucked myself up. But at least he knew I wasn't bullshitting, because when I did finally make it in, I had this big set of stitches in my face and I could barely talk. And they're like, okay, at least this guy's not a liar.
Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely good on them for, being like, okay, well, we'll hear from him in a couple weeks. And
I thought the job was going to be over before it even started, but he's the best boss I've ever had, and I'm still employed there.
yeah, he's definitely a good dude. I think I've met him once before. I'm not too sure, but from what I hear, he's an amazing guy. So definitely props to you, man. And moving on from there, so let's talk a little bit about the most recent crash. So this one I actually was around for. I wasn't at the actual scene of the accident. However, I'll kind of put my standpoint out first, and then you can kind of go for yours. I was out filming with a rider for a video, and he ended up getting a call because my phone was dead, and it was asking if we knew Travis's parents or their contact information. We immediately were like, oh, well, like, what happened? And that's when Jesse told us that you had actually had a really bad crash and that you had fallen from the top of the 9-foot bowl doing a Smith grind right to your face.
Well, he didn't know I was doing a Smith grind. I found out after.
Okay, sorry.
He just knew I was in a really bad accident. So Frederick, our friend from Montreal, she was riding with me, and when we were in Montreal and we were going to meet up with her, my phone was just about to die. So I was like, hey, Jesse, give me your phone so I can call Frederick. So that was the only other phone number that she had, because she was the only one riding with me that day when it happened. So kind of lucked out. Jesse was the first person to get a call.
It was definitely if Jesse didn't come to us didn't come with us to Montreal, or like, that could have been terrible if we didn't get that phone number to her, right? Like, that was definitely a very, very good fucking moment that you can look back on and be like, holy shit, thank fucking God.
Everything happens for a reason.
Exactly, that's for sure. So after that, I actually packed up my stuff because we had just finished filming. We headed over to the hospital where we met up with Jesse and Frederick, and we kind of just waited around to see if we could figure out anything. And I started checking yellow pages just to figure out if we could find your parents' phone number, and we did. And I called them, and no answer because it's like 10:30 at night. So I decided that our best option is to go to your parents' house, which I've been to a couple times, and I knocked on your door at 10:30 at night, and your dad comes out of the side door. So, like, I feel like he was kind of like, who the fuck is at the house right now? He came out the side door to check it out, and he saw it was me. And he's like, oh, how's it going? And I definitely was like, well, there's a reason we're knocking at your door at 10:30 at night, and it's not a good one. So I kind of explained the situation, and him and your mom actually hopped in their own car and drove over, and that's where we kind of saw you from there. And at that moment, like, I saw you on the hospital bed. You were completely out, unconscious, and they had let us know that you would be in a medically induced coma for the next couple days, which ended up lasting 4 days. And I don't know if you can even remember this at all, but the nurses did tell us that if, like, we wanted, we could actually talk to you, and you might be able to, like, hear us and be able to kind of, like, comprehend even when you were asleep. Your dad actually came over and talked to you for about a minute in your ear. Your mom was way too upset, and, like, she just couldn't, which was really sad, but like, she understands it, right? Like, she knows that this is what happens. It's part of the game, right? Like, it's a dangerous sport.
No, she was really upset. She's never wanted me to not wear a helmet ever. She was really, especially after, I think my whole family was really pissed off at me after, like, the second big accident I had, because, you know, they're all like, well, you should learn now. You got to wear a helmet. And, you know, I just did a way bigger crash and still wasn't wearing a helmet. So she was really, really upset.
She was definitely upset about it. And moving on from there, like, we ended up just kind of leaving at that point, and my girlfriend.
I don't remember you guys talking to me. I don't remember any of that.
I honestly didn't think that you could, but they did say that it sometimes really helps with people to kind of hear a voice that they're familiar with. So after that, we kind of took off, and Jesse, Keith, and I went and picked up your car. We were able to get the keys from your pockets while you were asleep, and we picked up your car and drove it back home, and then
Yeah, my bike.
yeah, and your bike, of course. I think Jesse picked up your bike first because he went there to pick up Frederick, and then he drove back to the hospital with her. So we picked up your bike then. We went back to the skate park, picked up your car, drove it back, and then after that, I looked after your house while you were gone.
Yeah, my kitty.
And figuratively, yeah, and looked after Corky, the cool-ass kitty. And I took Frederique back to Toronto so she could get the bus. But that's my point of view. So let's hear yours. Kind of let us know like what was really going on that night. Let's start like a couple hours before.
So I was at work, and I knew that Frederick had been staying over. So it was like literally 1 week after we got back from Montreal. And Frederick had messaged me a couple days prior saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. Am I still able to crash to your place?" I said, "Absolutely, like no problem." So she was staying over the last couple nights, and we had hit up a couple spots. And in Montreal, they don't really have many bowls. They have one bowl at their indoor park at Lataz, and that's pretty much the only bowl they have in Montreal. They have like this thing that they call a bowl at Parc Jacques, I think. I can't remember exactly, but it's barely a bowl. It's like an early 90s bowl, and it's just like 2, maybe 3 feet deep, and it's really, really wide. Like most people in this area wouldn't even really consider it a bowl, but that's all they really have for a bowl. So she wanted to check out some bowl spots, and I was going to take her to another spot, a dam spot, and we were going to do some nighttime filming. So I remember asking my boss, I'm like, "Hey, do you mind if I take a couple of these lights?" Because I had a couple of my own lights, but I wanted more lighting for these nighttime shots we were going to get for Frederick. So he's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And I took those lights, I took my lights, and I got back from work, and we got all packed up, and I was like, "Okay, we're going to go to this dam spot, but first we'll stop by Fisher Park. It's like my favorite park." I fought to have that bowl that deep. I went to all those city meetings, and they were going to make it 3 feet deep in the shallow and 6 feet deep in the deep end. And I fought hard to make sure it was 9 feet deep in the deep end. And
I remember you and I, especially, like I know for a fact I definitely put in my voice and said like 3 feet is not enough. That's like so small, and it's a really cool bowl to ride. I really like that bowl. It's so out of the way for me to get over there, but whenever I'm there, I do try and ride it a little bit.
It's just too bad that the skateboard company, it's literally like the skate park company is really skateboarder biased, unfortunately. So they would have made that bowl shallow had there not been some of the old school skaters. And as soon as I said, "We want a deep vert pool bowl," and they all piped up, "Yeah." And he really took their word. Like,
yeah,
he was
exactly.
listening to us, but he wasn't hearing us. And we kind of lucked out that we had some old school skaters like Dave Ingram and a couple of the other guys. I can't remember their names, but I think it was a big portion of them being there and vouching for a big steep bowl that we actually got it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to the skaters that were there to kind of hear our side, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do that." And a lot of those guys do skate the really deep bowls, so it's really good to kind of have their input as well.
But so I just told Frederick, I'm like, "Yeah, we're going to check out this bowl." Like I went to all the city meetings. I helped kind of design this park, and we'll just ride there for like half an hour, and then we'll go hit up this dam spot. And I think the very last thing I remember is like, and it's really vague too. I think I remember pulling up in the parking lot and going down the path towards the park. And then the next thing I remember is, I guess it was days later, like 4 or 5 days later, I remember waking up in the hospital, and vaguely I remember seeing my sister there, and then I kind of wake up again. I remember seeing my mom there, and then it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, "Oh my God, like, where's Frederick? How'd she get home? Like, what's happening? What day is it?" Like, I didn't know what was going on, and it was just really strange, just kind of piecing together and then figuring out what the date was and trying to remember what the last date that I was awake. And so this happened on August the 20th. And it was like August the 24th, near the end of the day, that I actually like woke up. That I remember waking up. I was told that I kind of woke up several times while in the induced coma, and I was really violent. And so I guess when you hit your head really hard, you can become really violent. And you just don't know what's happening. And so I guess I was getting so violent with they had a male nurse coming in, and I guess I kept scaring the shit out of him. And it was kind of funny. My sister took a video. Like, it's funny, but it's really not funny. But this is real shit that happens. My sister has a video of me, and I'm just lying down in the hospital bed, just all calm. Nothing's happening. Nothing's going on. And then you just see the male nurse, and he comes walking in the room. He's got a tray of stuff. And as soon as he's within eyesight of me, I start losing my mind. I have both legs tied down, both arms tied down, and it's like I'm trying to get up and strangle the guy, and I can't. I'm like, and I didn't know what to say. I don't remember any of it. I just remember waking up later and the male nurse coming in, checking a couple things, and he was just giving me such a dirty look. And he left the room, and I looked at my sister, and it's like, the fuck is his problem? And she'll go, I'll show you what his problem is. And she shows me the video, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what his problem is. Okay, I get it. And I guess my dad was telling me too, like he didn't realize like how strong I was, because the original day when I hit my head, and I guess I kept coming in and out of consciousness, like I was really violent, and they were trying to get my dad to help hold me down, and they had like 4 or 5 larger guys to hold me down because I was just losing my mind. Now, I don't remember any of that at all, and it's really crazy. Like, my sister told me I'd be bawling my eyes out because I'd be coming in and out of consciousness, and I'd wake up not remembering anything, and I'd be fully tied down, both my arms, both my legs. I'm crying because I'm in a hospital bed, and I can't even move my body. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's around me. I don't know where I am. And I'd be bawling my eyes out, and then they finally restrain me, or they let some of the restraints go, and then I get violent again. I start freaking out, trying to kill people, and then they'd strap me down again. And they literally had 2 security guards in my room for a couple days. So, again, I don't remember any of that.
Definitely shout outs to the fucking guy that had to deal with you, because that would have been a hard ass job. But yeah, I think it honestly just comes down to like your instincts as like a human being, right? It's not even like about the stuff that you've learned through life. It's literally
you just don't
evolution.
know what's going on, and you're just trying to protect yourself.
Yeah,
and you're just trying to get out of this situation, and you're literally tied down somewhere. Like, you wake up and you're tied down, so you're automatically going to be frightened because you have no idea where you are or what's happening. You're just tied down.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of like what they did in the hospital. So because you were out for so long, I believe they had to put a feeding tube in, correct?
Yeah, they had a tube down my throat, and that's why I couldn't really say much. And I actually, after I got out of the hospital after 5 days, I had to go back in another week or 2 because I got a really bad throat infection. And I completely lost my voice, and it was probably from screaming with breathing or with feeding tubes down my throat.
Yeah. What's crazy to me is like the day that you got out, I came over to your house and was just hanging out with you for a little while, and you were able to talk perfectly fine then. And I remember like you went to go and hand me a box of pizza, and like your depth perception was so off. You like reached so quickly for it and like almost knocked it over, and then like picked it up and like pushed it super fast at me. And like it's something that you don't really know, right? Like your brain is still kind of adjusting, and it's not really sure like what movements your arms need to do. And I remember that and being like, oh my god, like he got really fucking hurt. And like it was definitely like it happens, right? It sucks, but it was really like an eye-opener to myself, seeing kind of like what you went through to really be like, okay, you need to wear a fucking helmet. Especially like, I don't know, I've landed on my head quite a few times. I've knocked my teeth out 4 times now, and it's just something where it's like it's almost inevitable, right? Like it's the kind of riding that you and I do where like yourself and I feel personally, we commit, we hold the fuck on. If we're gonna do something, we're gonna fucking do it, and if we're gonna fall, we're gonna do it. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of how it goes, right? Like the first time that I really fucked up and hurt myself was at the bowl at Trashmore, and I just remember I did like the highest air that I've ever done in my life on the big red quarter, and when I came around the oververt, I just remember my front wheel kind of like, I think it went over the coping, and I just fell right to my face on the ground. And I don't know if I was knocked out. I can't really remember that night too much, but I remember getting up and instantly, like, a bunch of people were in the bowl and being like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And then I think so. And then immediately, "Oh my God, you lost a tooth, dude. Like, are you okay?" And then I started kind of freaking out. And I do know that when I was conscious, the very first thing I did when I like heard that I had lost a tooth, as I told Clayton Ray to go and grab a jug of milk. I was like, "Go get me a fucking carton of milk. Like, I don't have any money, but just go and do it." So he fucking went down to Timmy's. He risked his bike getting stolen. It luckily didn't, but he
The fuck
grabbed
were you
it.
gonna do with a carton of milk?
You put your tooth in it, and it keeps the calcium with your tooth. So if you do that, if you are able to get to the dentist like right after that, it keeps the tooth still alive in a way, and it keeps the tooth from like being super brittle. So I left it in this carton of milk, and I went to the hospital the next day, and because my tooth was ripped out the front, the root actually ripped all my gums and shit, so they weren't even able to put it back in.
No
And
saving that.
yeah, ever since then, there's like my gums are super fucked, and luckily like my lips, you can't really even see it. Like unless I was to pull my lip up, then you really can't see kind of what happened. But ever since then, I've had teeth problems. Like my front tooth is loose at all times, and I can't really even like bite into certain food. I have to use a knife to chop up hamburgers to eat. Like it's super hard, but definitely like something you got to live with, right? Like with yourself. I know the last crash you ended up kind of hurting, like you fucked up your teeth a little bit, but I think you just chipped them, right?
I chipped my front left tooth. I chipped the front left tooth, and it was enough I could have lived with it, but it's your front teeth, you know. It's the first thing people see when you smile, and so I tried getting it patched. That cost me $365, and that's the thing. When you get into dental work, we may be in Canada, but the healthcare system does not cover your teeth.
Which is so fucked, by the way. Like your teeth are like seriously one of the most expensive things to fix too. Which,
Absolutely.
Like, oh my God.
So I paid to get that patch done. The first patch lasted about a day and a half, and then I went back. They fixed it for free again. That lasted about a month, and then they put one more patch in, and didn't last very long again. And then they said, "Look, this is just going to keep happening. So you're either going to have to get a cap or crown done and pay for that, or keep living with a chipped tooth." So I had to pay another $1,000, and I got the crown done. And they did a really great job, but you know, it's really expensive. It's really, really expensive. And that was
Yeah.
out of pocket.
Teeth, like a lot of places really like they will insure dental, but like I know myself, I just work a fucking shitty part-time retail job. I don't get benefits, right? So
Yeah,
like,
I work for a small family-owned company, so we don't have benefits. I
Yeah.
was 100% out of pocket.
yeah, it's definitely it's a little tough, right? Like it can get so expensive, but I mean, you are paying into benefits if you do have them. So I mean, it does kind of help a little bit ish, but I don't know. It's definitely, teeth are some of the most expensive things that you have to fucking fix. So if you're out there and you've landed on your face before and you haven't had a mouth guard and you're okay, you didn't fuck up your teeth, go and buy a mouth guard. They're like $100 and they're
Not
custom
even.
fit. They're
Not
fucking
even.
yeah, they're great, man. Like I used to ride with one quite a while, but my teeth are so fucked now that I can't even wear one. If I
Yeah,
put
just
a
go
mouth
to your
guard,
dentist and they make a custom one that fits your teeth exactly. And a mouth guard also helps prevent concussions, because a lot of concussions are from when your teeth clack together, and a mouth guard seriously prevents that.
exactly, yeah. I know that when I fucked my front tooth up the very first time when I knocked it out, there was actually foreign objects in my fucking gums from when I landed. So
All the rocks and the
yeah,
dirt
all the
and
rocks and the
concrete.
dirt and shit. So they ended up having to do a bunch of work on that, and like I still haven't gotten it fixed, but it's extremely expensive. Like the only way that they can really do it for me is either like just doing a bridge like what I have now, but it constantly breaks and you have to be very careful with your teeth, or you get an implant and that's like $10,000, and it's definitely, it can get really expensive. So I know for yourself, like you paid out of pocket. Luckily, my dad has always been really good at helping with like this stuff, and definitely like I really appreciate it. But yeah, moving on from there, let's talk a little bit about how long did you lose your voice for? Because you did lose your voice from the actual tubes.
Yeah, so once I went back to the hospital to get my throat infection checked out, what really sucked is they put me back in ICU because it was my throat, and they were concerned that my breathing hole was gonna like close up, and I couldn't even swallow food, and they wouldn't even give me any food. They gave me medication, the swelling went down, and they would not even give me fucking Jello. I was so pissed off. They just gave me water and ice cubes. That's all I had to eat for the next couple days, and I think I'd lost my voice for. Like, by the time I could actually speak at a normal volume, it was probably a solid 5 to 6 weeks later. Like, even by the time I got back to work, I was like just above whispering level when I got back to work. And everyone who really knows me knows I'm quite a talkative person. I can get really loud and rambunctious, and I like to scream at a lot. I like to scream at lots of people.
Yeah, that's
I like
for sure.
being really loud. It's me. And everyone was just blown away when they'd come to visit me, and everyone would have to be really quiet when they'd ask me something because I'd have to whisper everything, because whispering was 100% volume level for me.
Yeah.
And even then it was just terrifying because I'd never lost my voice like this. It's one thing to get really sick and have a really bad cold and lose your voice and you're kind of crackly. That's fuck all compared to what happened.
Oh, exactly.
I was whispering for at least 3 to 4 weeks, and that was like my max volume, and I was scared because I thought, like, is this going to be permanent? Am I ever going to get my voice back?
I know personally myself, I honestly, like, for a couple weeks there, like after a couple weeks, I was like, oh my God, like how long is this going to last? I was really afraid for you, man. I honestly thought that it was going to become something like semi-permanent where like if you talked louder, it would really be difficult for you, or maybe it would like really hurt you. It's definitely good to see like how well you've actually recovered.
Yeah, I really like screaming at people.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly.
good to be able to scream again.
Oh, for sure. It's like to me it's like incredible to see the like strides that you've made. And last week we ended up going to ride like a private bull that one of my dad's clients owns, and
First time I've ridden in 7.5 months.
yeah, it was really cool to get you out again, and you were still killing it. Like there was, you could definitely sense a difference, but for the first time being back on a bike, dude, good fucking job. That was incredible, man. You
Thanks,
did
man.
such a good job. So shout out to you for that. Now, let's talk about this a little bit now. So has there been any permanent damage from this crash that you've seen? Is your depth perception still off? Are you kind of recovering from that stuff? Is there still stuff that you're kind of worrying about? And after that, I want to ask you a little bit about like other stuff in life that you weren't really able to do. So let's start with permanent damage. Has there been any permanent damage?
Just more facial scarring. Like I know from my second crash, I also got my eyebrow on my right side kind of got pushed in a little bit, and this just definitely made it a lot worse. It's more noticeable, especially on certain days. Like even the other day, someone was like, "Man, did you get punched in the face?" And I'm like, "No, that's just from my accident like 7 or 8 months ago, And I don't know. It's mainly the permanent stuff is the facial scarring, but I know my short-term memory isn't quite what it used to be. Like it's not terrible. It's getting a little bit better, but I know at first, like, I forgot a lot of things. Like, I'm really into cars. For those who know me, I'm really into my Hondas, and I have tons and tons of parts, engines, transmissions. I've got tons of Honda parts, and I forgot, like, most of what I had, and when I went back into my storage unit, it was like, whoa, I totally forgot I had this. I totally forgot I had this. And, like, even, like, last month, I was at my shop, and I was going to put some parts away for my boss, and I walk out back, and the wind blows, and there's this thing sitting on a tire covered by a tarp, and as the wind blows, it kind of blows up, and I'm like, and I see an engine, and it says Honda Motor Co., and I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like an Integra engine, and then it dawns on me, I'm like, that's my engine. I put that there. Like, I completely forgot about it. And it's like the more I see things, the more I remember, and I've recovered a lot more from that, but I really forgot a lot of what I had.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like memory is a big thing, right? Like a lot of people that do hit their head really hard, they lose a lot of their memory, and I think that is like a big reason on why if you actually get yourself knocked out, a lot of the times you can't remember anything before it for like at least a couple minutes. Like for myself, the second time that I really got fucking hurt when my forks broke it all in, I can remember doing the box jump line once, and being okay. Well, I just got to go a little bit higher. And the second time, I remember kind of going up off the jump and being in the air and doing a moto whip. And all I remember is the bike being 90 and then waking up. And I remember like the very first thing that I did when I woke up was check my teeth immediately, because this was after I had already fucked my teeth up. And instantly I had found out that my teeth were fucked. All of my top teeth on my right side were actually pushed in. So when I went to the hospital, they had to pull them back, and I had to wait in the hospital for like 6 hours for them to actually like be able to kind of get up there and do whatever they needed to do. And I know that when I was in the hospital, normally I'm a very patient person. Like if you stick me in a room for like 6 hours and you say, okay, like just sit here for 6 hours and don't do anything, I'll probably make it. I'll be fine. At this point, it was so quick to me. I know that like Derek from All In, he left like 4 or 5 times because he's just looking for stuff to do. And myself, I just sat there staring at a wall for like 6 hours, and it felt like maybe an hour. But I think like at that time too, like my phone was dead. I didn't have a watch, so like my
You're kind
time
of in shock
perception,
too.
yeah, that was it, that too, right? Like, but yeah, definitely. I remember that, and that's really it. Like I don't remember really anything other than that. But mine wasn't as bad. I was wearing a helmet. It wasn't certified, and I still have that helmet to this day. And I look at it sometimes because the very front of it has a huge fucking scratch and like dent and all this shit just from where I actually smacked my face. And it really helps me kind of remember like what's really at stake, right? Like riding gives me everything, and like everything involved like in my life has really come from BMX. And it's one of those things that's like it's amazing, but it will take it all away from you in a fucking instance. Like you don't know when it's gonna happen, but it will happen someday. And
You only got one life.
yeah, that's for
And
sure.
when you hit your head, it can definitely be life threatening, and it's not even about how hard you hit your head. Sometimes if you hit your head on a certain point or at a certain angle, you can die.
Oh, instantly.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like your head is something that you definitely don't want to fuck with. And
It's just something you live with every day, so you don't really value it that much until you almost lose it.
you only got one brain, right? And the brain is like one of the most sensitive parts of your body. Like if you fuck that up, what else, right? Like it controls everything. So
Well, that's what they told me. If I hit my head really hard again, I could be a permanent vegetable.
yeah, and that's definitely not what we want to see. So moving on from there, I wanted to talk a little bit about like the aftermath. So you ended up actually losing your license because when you hit your head the last time, you went into a seizure when they were taking you to the hospital. And myself, I actually have a history with epilepsy, so I don't have a driver's license. I can go and get one now because I've been seizure free without medication for a couple years now. But for Travis, who's never really had seizures before,
Doesn't run in my family.
yeah, it doesn't run in his family, it was kind of like a big shock, right? And it does happen when you hit your head that hard. So what really happened from there? Like,
Well, I had 2 seizures actually. So I hit my head and immediately went into a really serious seizure, and it wasn't just like a quick 30-second seizure. Like I was seizuring for over 5 minutes, and I was seizuring pretty much right until the paramedics came. And apparently right when the paramedics pulled up, I stopped seizuring. And then they brought me back to the hospital, and I guess they went to give me some kind of scan, whether it was an MRI or a CAT scan, I don't know. But they said I had a really big, heavy-duty seizure again, where I was seizuring for just over 5 minutes. And so then I just remember when I came to, 4 or 5 days later, and I was just trying to get out of the hospital, and I was eating fine, and they're like, yeah, so just sign this paper. We have to take your license away because you had a couple seizures, and we just don't know if you're going to have any more. And they wanted me to take this seizure medication. And I was just kind of all loopy. So I was like, oh, okay. But it was such a pain in the ass to get my license back after that. And I didn't have any more seizures. I took the seizure medication for, I think, about 2 or 3 days, and it just made me feel like trash. It made me feel horrible on the inside. And I thought to myself, like, fuck this. Like, if we'll see if I even have any seizures. I don't want to, I hate putting random ass drugs into my body for something that may not even happen. And I know they're professionals and they just mean the best, and that's what they're trained to do. But that medication made me feel so trashy. It just wasn't worth it, in my opinion. And like I said, it's not like it runs in my family. So I was just kind of like, you know what? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I can't drive anyways. So if it starts happening, I'll take the medication. But it never, I never got any more seizures. And it literally took me more than 2 months to get my driver's license back. It was near 3 months. It was like 2.5 months almost. And I had to fight to get it back. And I had to go to the doctors, and they had to reassess me. And then I had to, I remember when they took away my license, when I had to go to the ministry and give them my actual license, I said, is this going to cost me anything? They said, no, because it's medically induced, you know, and it's not going to cost you anything. To get my papers signed by the doctor cost me $150. So it's no different than when you get your license suspended for something. They're going to take your money either way. So I had to pay $150. And then, of course, it was a secretary that told me, okay, you go right down to Service Ontario. You go get your license back now. So I got to ride down to Service Ontario. And then they're like, oh, well, we have to hear from the medical review board. You have to go through them to get your license back. So it's like, what the fuck? So I had to mail the papers to the medical review board. And then those guys are just a bunch of assholes. They really are. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about your sister, your mom, your dad. You're just another number to them. They don't give a shit. They were really hard to deal with. Anytime you call in, minimum, you're waiting on hold for 20 minutes at a time just to get through to talk to somebody. And I got hung up on a couple times just because, you know, I remember the one time I had some attitude because it's been months. I am so frustrated that I can't get my license back at this point. And I had to fill out some more papers for them. Then I could have mailed the papers in. That's the thing. They only get back to you through snail mail response. They don't call you. They don't email you. So the quicker you send them the information, the quicker they're going to get back to you. But it's all an extremely slow process. So I was at work and we were getting the forms faxed into them. So because that's what one of the ladies told me, that's the quickest way for them to get the information. And they said, yeah. So I sent in the original forms, and you have to wait 2 weeks for them to process the forms. And so I waited a couple weeks, and I called back in, and they're like, oh, yeah, so I see here on your file, we didn't receive page 3 out of 5 or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I faxed everything in. So then I faxed it all in again. They're like, and again, I waited longer. And I kept calling in because the first lady told me, oh, well, since you've already mailed in your first stuff, it's already going to be in the system, so we'll be able to process you quicker. Well, when I faxed in the next set of papers that they said they didn't get from me, they told me like it was like 5 pages, and they told me they didn't get page 3 out of 5. It was one of those. I can't remember the exact details, but they didn't get a certain page they're asking for. And so I faxed it to them again. I called back, and the next person goes, well, no, you have to wait again because you have to wait the time for it to go through our system and be processed. And so then I had to wait even longer. Then I finally called back in, and they said, yeah, you still sent us the incorrect page. And I was like, what are you talking about? And that's when I got hung up on because I was so frustrated. I was like, what the hell, man? Like, I sent you the exact page you asked for. And so then I called back again, waited another 25 minutes on hold. And then finally I spoke to a lady who had a little bit more patience. And she said, oh, I see what's going on here. You were supposed to send us page 2 out of 5. So I'm like, did I just wait weeks on end because someone told me to send in the wrong page? And she's like, yeah. but that's not your fault. And then she asked for my phone number, and I sent in the page that day. And then the next day, I got a call on my cell phone from the same lady. And since they fucked up really hard, because they had made the mistake multiple times, and I was waiting for weeks on end for the response time, she ended up calling me, which is completely unheard of, because I've talked to a few other people who've dealt with the medical review board, and they've had really bad times. I know another person who actually had such a hard time with the medical review board, they tried to sue them, and since it's with the government, they lost. Anyways, she called me the next day and was like, yep, your information has been reviewed. You've been approved to get your license back. You can go get your license. So I was really ecstatic, but oh my God, it is such a pain in the ass to deal with the medical review board. And it was really, really shitty to lose my license because, you know, I drive to do everything. I work as a mechanic full time. So it's like, it was affecting my work. I couldn't test drive any vehicles. I couldn't drive to do anything. And I was lucky enough. I have a really good friend, my friend Stefan. A lot of people know who he is. He's
Hello,
really,
man.
hello, gay.
Hello, guy.
That's just how he speaks. He's got a very big heart. He's a very nice guy. I happened to be on his way to where he works, and he worked a little further down the street than I did, and he got off just a little bit before I did every day. So he literally drove me to work for about a month and a half, and before that, and that's when it started to get colder out here, and before that, I was riding my fixed gear bike to and from work every day. So I'm just really blessed to have good friends that were driving me back and forth. Really, really blessed, because man, when you have your license and you drive everywhere to do everything, it's almost depressing to lose your license, and you're just sitting at home going like, I wonder who might come over. I wonder who I might be able to go see. And especially since, you know, they told me in the hospital, like, stay off your bike for the next year. And I remember being in the hospital, and she says, yeah, you can't ride your bike for a year. And I laughed in her face. And she said, no, but seriously, like, at least 6 months, don't touch your bike. And I had to go to a therapist before I could go back to work. So she had to say, okay, you're ready to go back to work. And I didn't have anybody to drive me to the therapy appointment. So I had to literally, I remember a couple days it was raining. So I had to bike on my brakeless fixed gear bike. I had a helmet on, but I had to bike on my brakeless fixed gear to the therapy appointments. She's like, oh, how'd you get here? I'm like, oh, I biked. And she's like losing her mind. I'm like, don't worry. I was going really slow. I was taking my time. I have my helmet. So, you know, it was a really big learning experience. And, you know, you only live once. And they literally told me in the hospital, they said, you almost died. Do you realize that? Like, you literally almost died. There's a lot of chances that you would not be here right now. And it's kind of, it was a big eye opener. And it's kind of changed my perspective, you know. You only live once, and you take a lot of stuff for granted. You know, things are just handed to you, or you're just used to your routine and doing stuff. And I always went out biking without a helmet. You know, fuck helmets, whatever. And I just go out and like, people who know me, they know I like to do really big, scary things. I don't have that many tricks in the bag, but I'll do the big, scary stuff that everyone who can do a bunch of tricks doesn't want to touch. And I used to just do that stuff no problem with no helmet. And I look back and it's like, that's absolutely mental. Like, I can't believe I was doing some of that stuff without a helmet now. And it's really changed my perspective after not having a license for 2.5 months, having my face stitched up again, and, you know, my depth perception being right off, and my memory loss. And the lack of work is hard to pay. You know, I still had to pay my rent when I was out of work. There's no one going, here, I'm going to lend you $900 so you can pay a month of rent. You know, I had to make that on my own. That all came out of my pocket. And, you know, I got through, but it definitely wasn't easy. And, you know, I got a brand new helmet, fully certified when I got my tooth fixed. My dentist actually hooked me up since I paid all in cash. I had race car money saved up, and I paid all in cash. Like, how'd you get all this cash? And I was like, well, it was for my race car originally, but my teeth are a little bit more important than the race car. So here you go. So since I paid in cash, they ended up doing my mouth guard for free. So, now, I've only ridden once since my crash, but 100% helmet and mouth guard every time. Like, it's just not even a question. It's not even worth it. And especially like all the things I've been able to accomplish, like even non-BMX related since my crash, like it was almost intimidating even go riding for the first time, because you're just thinking like, what if just something happens, and what if I just hit my head on that right angle? And like they couldn't stress it enough that like if you hit your head hard one more time, you could seriously be a vegetable, like just pretty much brain dead. They have to feed me through my mouth, and I'd just be sitting there slobbering on myself all day. And it's really not a pleasant thing to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely it's really, I feel like a lot of people, if they're listening to this, it's really going to change their mind on how they feel about helmets. I know personally, like myself, I wear it now, but I really didn't used to, and I know for yourself too, right? Like, you are the kind of guy, just from filming you, like I know the kind of stuff that you do. You go big and you fucking go hard.
Home.
Exactly.
It was like really nice when we did ride a few weeks ago. It was really nice to see just about everybody in the crew had a helmet, and a lot of those people before would never wear helmets. So
exactly.
It's kind of really nice to see just about everybody with a helmet on, and I think the more we go, I think the more people are going to be wearing helmets. And as I said, I was brought into it kind of in the sense like, oh, you're more hardcore if you don't wear a helmet. But it's like, when it comes to your life, do you really care about being hardcore? Do you care about being alive? Do you care about being able to experience life? Like, BMX is a big part of my life, but there's so much more to life than just riding. Like,
yeah, exactly.
like just being able to function as a human being, communicate, go see things, do things, like that could all be affected from hitting your head. And it just takes one slip and fall. Like, my good friend Kara told me she was playing at a hockey camp back when she was a kid. Some kid slipped on the ice, hit his head on a weird angle, and he died. It takes that one time and you're dead.
It's definitely nothing that you want to fuck around with. A couple of minutes ago, you mentioned that you were on seizure medication. So myself, when I was a child, I was on that stuff every day. I had to take it twice a day. The stuff that I was taking was called Zerontin. It's absolutely fucking disgusting. It tastes so gross. It's so bad for you. And I can relate 100% on it. Makes you like feel so fucked. Your insides just don't feel good at all. Like, I took it for probably 10 to 13 years of my life every single day, and it was very hard to fucking take that stuff. So when I kind of had the clear from the doctor to kind of like move away from it and not have to take it anymore, that was a life-changing moment for me. And it's really crazy to like have to take that stuff. You wouldn't think that it's like a big deal, right? It's like, oh, it's just like Advil. No, not at all. It fucks
makes
with you
your
so
whole
hardcore.
body feel like trash. Like, you don't feel like, mentally you're still yourself, but physically it's almost like you feel like you're sick.
Yeah, exactly. I can 100% relate with that. I actually have like a pretty bad case of ADHD, and when I was in boarding school, they made me take a like medication for it called Concerta, and I found that taking that medication made me not who I was, and it made me very, very depressed. And for a while, like for a good 6 months, I honestly didn't even want to live just because of how fucked it felt. Like, I just didn't like it. I wouldn't eat. I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't just deal with anything. I just didn't like it at all. It fucked me up for months. And then finally I just kind of like stepped away from it and stopped taking it and started to kind of figure out my own ways around it. And I definitely think that there is a lot of ways to get around without using like medications, right? Like, I don't know.
Like, some are really necessary. They
of
really
course,
are.
like, for sure. I think there's definitely like no shame in looking stuff up and looking at the kind of stuff that you're going to be doing, and
look into your options.
Like, look
There's
into your
always
options. Oh, of course. And sometimes the doctors don't even really like think about it, right? Like, I know for myself, when I like am editing something, sometimes it takes an outside voice to really be like, oh, that would make a lot more sense. That happens with everybody. So I think definitely look into your stuff that you could be doing and go from there. Now, one really big change that you've made, Travis, in the past couple months, for years, when I first met you, I knew that you were a pothead, and you liked your weed. You used to smoke.
I loved it.
Oh, exactly. You
Every
smoked
day.
every single day, like multiple times a day. You wouldn't go to work stoned,
No,
and
never.
I really appreciate that.
Well,
shit,
working
man.
on cars, you can't. You're putting other people's lives in your hand. But yeah, I've been smoking weed pretty much every day since I was about 13 years old, and after my crash, I was smoking a ton, just trying to make myself feel better. And so, previous to my last crash, I'd say I was a pretty productive stoner. I'd go home, I'd smoke a few bongs, and then I'd go work on my car till 2 or 3 in the morning. No problem. I'd get all this stuff done. And after my crash, I still wanted to get all this stuff done, and I'd smoke weed or I'd smoke some dabs, whatever, and then I'd just sit there and think about all the things I wanted to do, and I just got so lazy and so unmotivated. And I think that's had a really big effect after my crash. I'm just not the same kind of stoner that I was, and I just had no motivation to do anything anymore. I wanted to do it, but nothing was getting done. So I made the change early in January of 2019, and I think it's been around 15 or 16 weeks I haven't smoked any weed or consumed any marijuana products. Not that I'm against it. Like, I love weed. I love how it helps a lot of people. There's so many instances in the health world that it helps so many things when you're using it in the proper for the proper use. And I'm not against anyone do it. Like, I still let people smoke weed in my house. I have weed for people to smoke at my house. In fact, you can come over after the podcast and smoke some of my bongs. I've got 3 different bongs you can choose from, and some shatter too. But
Fuck yeah.
But the thing is, I just didn't want to be a pothead anymore. I've stopped smoking weed for now. Not that I'm going to quit permanently, but I don't want to be a pothead anymore. I don't want to rely on it. I'd get home from work, I'd smoke a bong or I'd smoke some dabs, and then I'd decide what I'm going to do with my night after. And I feel like since I've stopped, I'm a lot more productive. Like, I pretty much got my race car finished up. I've been working on that for 2 years. Like, there was other things that held me back, but it's just really depends on the person. And again, not that I'm against it, but I feel like I was just kind of past that phase in my life of using it every day. And a lot of people, it's just weird because a lot of people have known me only to ever be a pothead, and as soon as they're like, "You're not smoking anymore," like, oh my God, like, it's just so strange. But it's really been a pretty positive experience. And not that I'm done forever, but I just don't want to be a pothead anymore. I don't know when I'm going to smoke it again. I don't know. I probably will. I don't think I won't ever smoke it again, but it's just not, I used to be so reliant on it. Every day I'd have to smoke, or I'd have to bring something with me to smoke, wherever I'm going, whatever I'm doing. I always knew that smoking weed or consuming some kind of marijuana product would be in my set of plans, and now doesn't even faze me. And it's kind of really nice. I can just go about my day and it doesn't even cross my mind. It's actually really nice.
That's incredible, man. It's definitely it was a big change for me just to see you not smoking weed anymore, because like when I first met you, you were a big pothead, and you've always been like
at the trash mower bowl.
Oh,
I'd take a big bong toke, pump around the bowl, and exhale the bong toke when I was up on my tabletop air.
Oh yeah, like it's just one of those things that I've always known you as somebody who likes to smoke pot, like
you and everybody else.
Yeah, exactly, man. I honestly think there's nothing wrong with it. Like, if you want to smoke weed, smoke weed. I do. I smoke almost every day, but I try and do it in a different way. Like, I do it at the very end of the day, but like, I don't know, for yourself personally, you were doing it a lot, and that's fine. Like, if that's what you wanted to do, then for sure.
And I feel like the fall really changed it, though, because even then, I don't think I would have changed had I not had that fall, because prior to that, I was really productive. I could get high, and I could get a bunch of things done. It was only after that last fall that it really changed the way I acted and the way my mind worked after I'd get high.
I definitely think that it probably had a lot to do with the fact of like the way that you hit your head, right? Like, it causes a lot of brain damage, and I feel like over the years of you smoking, you probably got to a certain tolerance where you were able to kind of be like, okay, I need to do this today, and you could still do it, right? And then after that, you kind of maybe lose that a little bit. And I definitely think it's a very good decision for yourself to stop smoking for a little while. Maybe take a year, maybe take 5. Who cares, man? It doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world, right? Like,
Well,
it's
not on
always
my
going to be
mind.
there. That's the thing. It's always going to be there. If you want to try it again, there's fucking plenty of opportunities to. It's not like it's not legal in this country, right? Like, it's super, like, it honestly just comes down to you. And I think that for the next little while, it's probably a very smart decision if you just stop and just really look at life in a different way, right? Like, you've smoked weed for 13 years straight, right?
Well, even
So-
after my last accident, like I was really relying on, I was smoking it a lot more than I was before. And I think it was really good just to stop. Like, yeah, it can help heal. It can help your mind relax. But I think my brain, to really heal up, it just needed a complete break from that.
Oh,
And
of course, man.
I think I've been a little bit sharper since I've stopped.
I definitely can agree with that. I remember the day that you got out of the hospital, I came over to your house, and when I opened the door, you're already sitting there ripping a bong with Ozzy. And, like, to me, it was absolutely fucking hilarious, but also, like, dude, be fucking careful. And, like, I get it, man. You gotta fucking take that shit down a notch. Like, yourself and myself, I don't like to take medications. Like, I would much rather just smoke some weed and maybe it would help, right? Like,
Of course, whispering over, hey, do you want to talk?
yeah, that was the best part. You had like
Didn't
such a
talk
good
yet.
ASMR voice for a little while. You could have been pro at that shit, man. But moving on from there, I kind of just want to reiterate the fact that, like, when you were kind of growing up and the way that you rode, you didn't wear a helmet, and for a lot of people that was the norm. You wouldn't wear one. And why do you think that really was? I know you've kind of explained it, but, like, let's dig a little deeper here. Like, I know for a
I
lot
think
of
it's
people,
just image.
Yeah.
It was a huge image thing. And, like, especially back when I was a kid, there was not a lot of cool looking helmets. And you're like, you'd see the guy wearing a helmet. It's like, that guy's gay. Look at him. Like, and then you see the dudes not wearing helmets, and they're usually doing bigger, better, cooler things. And I had this weird mentality for a while when everyone would ask me, why don't you wear a helmet? You do these big, crazy things. And my excuse would be like, if I know I'm not wearing a helmet, then I'm not going to go as hard. But if I wear a helmet, then I'll go harder and I'll probably break more bones. I'll probably hurt myself more. It's kind of a stupid mentality. Like, in a sense, it kind of made sense, but really not really.
for a lot of people, I know that their mentality behind it is that, oh, if I'm wearing a helmet, I'm going to risk the fall. Whereas if I'm not wearing one, I'm not going to fall. I'm not going to fucking fall because I don't want to get hurt. When it's like, it doesn't matter to you, man. It's how the cards play out. Like,
Yeah, shit's
it's
going to happen.
all
If
of
shit's going to
fucking
happen,
roll the
it's gonna
dice.
happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I can definitely agree with you on there. And if you look at like BMX and its past, a lot of people really didn't wear helmets, and it's definitely really good that I am starting to see a lot more people wear them, including my crew is like including a lot more people, right? Like you're starting to see like certain street riders start to wear them, and for certain people I'm like, I get it, right? Like certain people just will never wear a helmet, and that's fine. Like that's completely up to you. It's your decision at the
Like
end
Brandon
of the day.
Began.
Yeah, that dude, I don't understand how he doesn't wear
I don't
one.
get it. Like, that was an intense fall. I'm sure everyone knows about that. His half cab down El Toro, and he
Yeah.
completely knocked himself out.
He pissed his pants too.
Well,
Like
it happened to me when I did too.
Yeah.
I didn't know that till I was told. But when I had a seizure and I pissed my pants.
yeah, man, it happens. It's like it's not up to you. If you fucking knock yourself out hard enough, you'll do it. It's just a
It's just
body
your body
function.
function.
Yeah, exactly. But for Began, like he doesn't wear a helmet, and then a lot of other street riders that you see that have taken like horrible fucking crashes don't wear one. But moving on from that, I really wanted to kind of touch on the fact that we see a lot of pro riders that have taken these incredible like sad falls where they get really fucking hurt, and there's nothing you can really do, right? Like you sit there and you think, oh well, like I'll wear a helmet, and then a couple weeks later you're out riding and you're still not wearing one. I know personally that was a big thing for me. Like when I first started riding was when Brett Benasewicz had his fall, and he was in his prime. He was only like 17 years old, and he was on top of the game. And at that point, I think what I've heard, the rumor is that he crashed on a front flip over a spine. And if you look at him now, like even his life has changed. Like he doesn't ride the same. He doesn't have the same functions in his head. Like, you can tell that he's lost a lot that he had, and he's doing really well. I saw a clip of him doing a double tail whip over a box jump recently, and I'm like, that's fucking incredible, man. This is somebody that, like, 5 or 6 years ago couldn't even walk, and this dude is doing a double whip over a box jump. Like,
It changes your life when you hit your head, and
for
honestly,
sure.
You can hear it preached to you over and over, but most people learn the hard way. You're really not going to understand the effects and the impacts it truly has until it happens to you. So as much as you don't want to hear it, just heed the warning, wear a helmet. It's just not worth it. Like, your life is valuable, and it's just not worth it to take it away because of your own decision. It's just make that call to yourself. Like, you could die any day doing anything. Like, the most dangerous thing you do on a daily basis is you get in a car and drive. You could be hit by a drunk driver. But, like, when you're riding your bicycle, like, it's just so preventable. You're going to fall no matter what happens. Like, especially, in BMX, you're going to fall. But, like, why even take the risk?
Yeah, I completely agree, man.
They got really cool looking helmets out there. All I can do is just encourage people. I'm not going to hate on people who don't wear their helmets, because I was one of those people for a long, long time. But, after experiencing all this, like, and even if you don't really care so much, like, I'm not saying people don't care about their lives, but they're like, oh, it's my life. If I die, it's my own problem. What about your family? What about everyone around you? Like, my mother was so upset for so long after that.
It was heartbreaking for myself to sit there and see her, like, completely in tears while you're in a hospital bed, right? Like, I tried my best to kind of, like, keep them, like, staying in one area and just being able to kind of process everything. Like, I looked after your house.
Even know if I was going to wake
everything.
up.
That's the thing, right? Like, you never know. And, like, some of those cases people don't. And for her, like, it must have been so heartbreaking. And, like, I don't know, that night.
She lost her best friend that year, and she lost her father that year. And then for me, her son to be in coma.
It's very, very scary.
So devastating for her.
Yeah. I grabbed your parents' contact information, so from now on I won't have to go to their house at 11 o'clock at night. Hopefully it never happens again, but you never know, right? So I definitely think that if you're ever out riding with a friend, just do the thing of just giving them, like, contact information, right? Like, that's something that I'm trying to stress with my crew now, is that everybody that's in my crew, when we're filming, you give me all of the contact information for your parents or whoever you need for an emergency. It definitely can change your life, right? Like, moving on from there, though, like, if you look at crashes like Scotty Kramer's, he was wearing a helmet, and Scotty has been on top of the game for like 15 years. That dude is unreal. He's a legend, exactly.
Absolute legend.
He is incredible on a bike, and he was one of the last people that I would ever think that would happen to. And he's spun that entire experience from a negative to the biggest positive. And if, like, I watch his videos all the time just because of how incredible it is. Like, I saw him he recently dropped in on a quarter from a double peg grind. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, 2 years ago, this guy literally couldn't walk, and he didn't have a forehead. Like, this dude is unreal on a bike, and he is so fucking inspiring.
And he would have died had he not been wearing a helmet.
Exactly. He almost died with a helmet.
He would have been dead.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like, he went through it, like, harder than anybody, I think. And luckily, it was somebody like Scotty that has that kind of, like, push to fucking do it. And he said in one of his most recent videos that, like, if it wasn't for the BMX community, he wouldn't have gotten this far. And it's that the people come up to him and they tell him that he's a fucking inspiration. And, like, it's one of those things for me, man. Travis, you're a fucking inspiration to me because you've done so much since then. And I know that your crash wasn't as bad, but fuck it, man. Who cares? You almost died too. And it was one of those things that, like, if you can see how far you've gotten since then, like, it really proves to people that you can push past it and you can do anything. And, like, look at Mike Aiken. That happened to him almost 10 years ago, and the dude is still ripping. That dude absolutely fucking kills it. every
He is
time that
an
he rides.
absolute legend as
He
well.
is a
I've
true
looked up
legend.
to Aiken for a long time.
Exactly.
One of the guys who got me really hardcore into BMX.
He'll definitely
one of
never
his
ride
inspirations.
like he did before, but he
No.
is very fucking close. Like, his riding nowadays is still clean. He still has style. He still sends shit.
He's
And
still a
he is
man.
exactly. He's still the best. He's still fucking Aiken. Like, that's a name that anybody can hear and they know, and that's incredible to me. And that dude is unreal. And I don't know. It's
And one thing I just want to cover when it comes to head injuries, we can look at the legend Dave Mira. He had a lot of head injuries, and head injuries, when repeated, it causes a weird chemical reaction in your head, and over time, a lot of people, a lot of athletes have committed suicide from not because of their head injuries specifically, but because of what their head injuries caused. And Dave Mira was one of those people who had a lot of head injuries. Yeah, he wore a helmet a lot, but he had a lot of head injuries, and that really affects you. And that was an absolute loss. Dave Mira was my biggest inspiration as a young child getting into BMX. I knew Dave Mira before I knew Matt Hoffman. Don't get me wrong, I love Hoffman, but I knew Mira first.
oh, of course, man.
And I was at such a loss of words when I found out what happened, and that can be a partial cause from head injuries. So it's just, again, stressing the helmets. It will cause, and it can affect so many more things than you can even think of, and it's not worth it in the end. And it's just, don't learn the hard way. Don't learn the hard way. It's not worth it. Your life is worth more than you think.
If you look at a lot of football players and stuff, a lot of those guys, they end up committing suicide as well, just
Absolutely.
because of all the head injuries. And for certain people, they know about the head injuries, and it's one of those things that they can't help it, but they still do it. And there has been a lot of cases where people, instead of trying to fucking blow their brains out with a gun, they shoot themselves in the chest so that scientists and doctors can sit there and study their brain and figure out a cure. And it's absolutely crazy to think that that is something that happens, but it does, and it can happen to anybody, right? Like, it could happen to you while you're walking down the street, but I mean, it's more likely to happen if you're riding a bike or if you're skateboarding. And a big
any
name,
kind of sport, really. Extreme sports more often than so, but any kind of sport, any
Oh,
kind
of
of really
course.
active
Yeah.
thing.
if you look at this is a case that has kind of been very recent, and it's not 100% yet, but it's very speculated. If you look at Jake Phelps, the editor for Thrasher magazine, he actually passed away a couple weeks ago. He had a head injury in 2017 riding his skateboard, and when that happened, he ended up getting really fucked up from it. He was in the hospital as well, and a lot of people speculate that his death was too soon, and the reason was because of the head injury. And I've read that on a couple different articles online, and I don't know for sure, but he was very young. Like, nobody really knows the full reason yet, or at least it hasn't been like put out publicly, but a lot of people are speculating that it had something to do with his head injury that he had a couple years ago. So it's one of those things that it doesn't go away. Like, you really got to think twice before you get on your bike without a helmet, or if you go and skateboard without a helmet. And I know a lot of people will say, like, oh, well, it's not cool, or, you know, like, oh, it's just not the same. But it's really, it doesn't matter. And one of the most, like, bitch boy excuses that I hear is like, oh, a helmet's uncomfortable. I'm like, well, then get one that fits.